My wife showed up to our divorce hearing drunk at 9 o'clock in the morning in front of the judge, in front of her own lawyer, in front of me. 22 years flying for an airline, 12 years married to me, and the last time I ever stood in a room with her as her husband, a deputy was quietly asking her how she got to the courthouse. I am going to tell you the whole thing, because the drinking is how it started. The drinking is how I found out, and the drinking is how it ended. I run the building at a high school, boilers, roofs, fields, everything that breaks. My wife was a flight attendant for a major airline for 22 years, the last 8 of them international. We have a daughter, 19, away at school, 12 years married, and for most of them, I would have told you the arrangement worked. She flew 4 days, home 3. I kept the house running and the kid fed, and when she walked in off a trip, she would drop the bag by the door and hold up whatever bottle she bought in whatever country she had been in, and that was the ritual. That was us, and I want to be straight about the drinking from the start, because none of it was hidden and none of it was new. My wife drank the whole time I knew her. Crew culture is a drinking culture. At least I thought it was. She told me that on our second date. The layover ends at a hotel bar. The trip ends with a bottle. Wine was not her problem. Wine was her personality. That is what she liked to say. She was never sloppy. 22 years and she never missed a trip. Never failed a recurrent. Never got written up. She drank steady. All day, a little, forever. 2 years ago, her doctor stopped laughing with her. Routine physical, blood work came back, and the doctor sat her down and told her the liver numbers were bad and getting worse, and that she needed to take it easy or her liver was going to give out. That is not me being dramatic. That is close to the exact sentence because she repeated it at dinner that night. My daughter was concerned. I remember that. 19 years old, and she did not look up from her plate. She took it easy for about 3 weeks. Then she had a 4-day trip overseas, and whatever gets reset on those trips got reset, and the bottles came back to the recycling bin. I know because I am the one who rolls the bin to the curb. I counted 1 week, and then I made myself stop counting. So, that was the marriage going into last year. A wife I loved on a schedule I knew. A doctor's warning nobody talked about anymore, and me at the school fixing what breaks. I thought the distance between us was the job and the wine. I had it half right. Now, 2 people, because everything that happened next happened because of them. My wife's best friend goes back to high school, 30 years. She is loud where my wife is smooth. She has been at every holiday we ever hosted. And her husband is the quietest man at every table. Good guy, sells industrial equipment, travels for it. He can be at a party for 3 hours and say 9 words. I have known him 15 years, and I could not tell you his opinion on anything. In March, that man was 3 states away at a trade show, and in the lobby bar of his hotel at 10 at night, he saw my wife. She was supposed to be on a layover in a different city. She was in a black dress at a corner table with a tall man in a suit, and her hand was on the back of the man's neck. And my wife and this man got up and walked to the elevators, and in front of the elevator she kissed him, and they went up, and the quietest man at every table stood there by the bar with his beer and watched the doors close. He did not take a picture. He did not call anybody. He finished nothing, went to his room, flew home the next day, and said not one word to anyone for 3 weeks, and then it started eating him, and he told the one person he tells things to, his wife, my wife's best friend of 30 years. I found out all of this later, in order, so let me give it to you. He told her what he saw, and he told her he was staying out of it. It was none of his business. He was not going to blow up a family over one hotel lobby. And his wife heard that, and she looked at him, and she said, "None of your business is not a thing that exists in this family." She knew my daughter's middle name. She had stood up at our wedding, and her husband had watched her best friend kiss a stranger and ride an elevator up, and he wanted to call it none of his business. She would not let it go. I know this part because she told me herself after. It was 3 weeks of her pushing and him digging in. He kept saying, "What if I am wrong about what I saw?" She kept saying, "You know what you saw." And finally she told him, "Either you tell that man or I do. And if I have to be the one, I will also be telling him that you knew and sat on it." The week after the garage, the story moved through the family, one phone call at a time. And my daughter called me from school on a Sunday night. She had heard enough of it from her cousin. She asked me a serious question before anything else. She asked, "Did you know at spring break?" Because she had been home at spring break, and the 4 of us had done a whole normal week, her mother included. And I told her the truth. No, I did not know at spring break. I found out after. And she didn't say anything for a second, and then she said, "Good," because I could not handle it if you sat through that week knowing. 19 years old. She was checking whether her father had lied to her face for a week. That is what her mother put on that kid's list of worries. He texted me on a Friday. "Can I stop by in the morning?" Just me. 15 years I have known him, and that text had never once happened. I texted back, "Sure," and I stood on my porch the next morning while the quietest man I know stood next to my truck with his hands in his jacket pockets and could not start. I said, "Just say it, man." And he said, "My wife says you deserve to know, and she is right, but I need you to hear that I was not looking for this." And then he told me, the trade show, the lobby, the black dress, the corner table, her hand on the man's neck, the elevator, all of it in that flat, nervous voice of his. And I stood there holding a pair of scissors I do not remember picking up. He said the date, and the date is the part that put it beyond argument, because I keep her schedule on the side of the refrigerator. I have kept it there for 12 years, so we always knew when Mom was home. And the week he said, her schedule said a different city than the one he saw her standing in. I asked him a question. I asked, "Did it look like the first time?" And that quiet man looked at me and said, "No, it did not. It looked like a routine." My wife had a routine 3 states away, and I was at home keeping her schedule on the refrigerator. He left, and I want to tell you what I did about the affair itself, which is almost nothing. I did not hunt down the tall man. I found out later he was a consultant who flew every single week, one of those front cabin regulars, and that she had been bidding her trips to line up with his travel. What I did instead was call a lawyer on Monday morning from the boiler room at the school, and the lawyer told me 2 things in the first meeting that I am going to hand to you now. 1, Illinois is a no-fault state, and Illinois does not care about the affair at all. He said, "Stop, I can hear where this is going, and I need you to understand that her cheating will not cost her $1 in this courthouse. There is no moment where the judge hears about the hotel and makes her pay. That moment does not exist here. Illinois looks at money, not behavior." 2, and then he looked at my income and looked at her income, and he smiled, and he said, "But the money math is going to hurt her worse than a judge ever could, because here is what I did not know until that meeting. Maintenance in Illinois runs on a formula, 1/3 of her net pay minus 1/4 of my net pay with a cap on the total, so nobody gets rich off it. And my wife, 22 years of seniority, international flying, per diem, made about double what the school pays me. 12 years of marriage put the length of it at about 6 years of payments. The cheating spouse paying maintenance to the husband, not because she cheated. Illinois could not care less that she cheated, because she flew and I fixed boilers, and she made quite a bit more. When her lawyer walked her through that math, months later, I am told she stood up and left the room. Her own income did it, nothing else. But I am ahead of the story. Back to spring. Before the filing, one more thing happened that I did not expect. The best friend came to my house, 30 years of holidays at my table, and she stood in my driveway like a stranger, and she said, "I am not here to talk about her. I am here to say it to your face. I made him tell you, and I would make him do it again. And I am sorry it took 3 weeks." And then she hugged me hard and got in her car and cried in my driveway for a minute before she pulled out. I stood there and let her have the minute. That woman broke her own oldest friendship for me, and she did it on purpose, and she has never once asked me for anything since. I filed for divorce. She got served on a home day in the early afternoon, and I was at work on purpose, and when I pulled in that evening, she was at the dining room table with the papers and a glass, and I want to tell you her first words to me as a served woman. She did not apologize. She did not say, "I can explain," not a denial in sight. She did not say anything. She called girlfriends. She retraced trips. She narrowed it down, and she got there because she is not stupid, drunk, or sober. Her flight schedule against who she knew, who traveled, who could have been in that city. She landed on her best friend's husband, and she called her best friend of 30 years to be outraged about the betrayal. Her word, and her best friend, God bless her forever, said, "Don't you dare come at me with that shit." I made him tell, "If you want to be angry at this house, be angry at me. And while you are at it, be angry that you kissed a man in a hotel you were not even scheduled to be in." That was the last conversation of a 30-year friendship. My wife hung up and never called her again. She cut off 30 years over the telling, not the cheating. Now the drinking, because through all of this, the drinking changed. The steady idol stopped being steady. She drank at 4, then at 2, then the recycling bin stopped being a count I could do in my head. She flew her trips. She never showed up to a gate impaired. I will give her that to the end. The airline never had a problem with her. The house had the problem. The house between trips was a woman on the couch with a glass, texting a man 3 states away, watching her own divorce come at her, with a liver her doctor had already flagged twice more since that dinner. In the middle of all of it, about a month after she got served, she tried once. I came out to my truck after work, and there was an envelope on the seat, my name on it in her handwriting, and inside was 4 pages. I went through it one time, standing in the school parking lot. It said the consultant meant nothing. It said the marriage got lonely with all the flying, and the wine filled it in, and the man just came with the wine. That is nearly word for word. 4 pages, and the affair got 2 sentences, and the wine got a full page of excuses, and I got the last paragraph, which asked if we could have dinner and talk before the lawyers took everything over. I did not answer the letter, not to punish her. I did not answer because there was nothing in those 4 pages that was new, and the one thing I kept waiting to see was not in there. She never said the word sorry. 4 pages. Count that with me. A whole letter about how it happened, and not one line that said, "I am sorry." Her lawyer asked for a settlement conference in the fall. We had the one hearing before it, a morning status hearing, 9 o'clock, a scheduling matter. My lawyer told me I barely needed to be there. "I need you to see the courtroom. It is not a TV courtroom. It is a small county room with bad carpet and a judge who has 40 files on her desk that morning. You stand when your case is called. You say 3 sentences. You get your dates. You leave." My wife came in 10 minutes late, and the first thing I noticed was the cardigan buttoned 1 button off, and the second thing I noticed was the walk. I was married to her for 12 years. I know the walk, the too careful walk. She sat next to her lawyer, and her lawyer leaned in to say something, and I watched that man's face change at close range. He got 2 words in and stopped. He put his pen down, and my wife said something back to him, and she said it at a volume you do not use in that room. And the judge looked up from her 40 files. The judge asked her lawyer if his client was all right. Her lawyer stood up and asked for a moment. The judge said, "That was not my question." And then the judge looked at my wife and asked her directly, "Ma'am, are you under the influence this morning?" And my wife, 22 years of crew professionalism, stood up in that little courtroom, steadied herself on the table with both hands, and told the judge she had had a mimosa with breakfast because it was, and this is the quote, basically juice. To a circuit judge at a status hearing, nobody in that room moved. The judge did not yell. She continued the hearing on the spot, put a line in the record about the respondent appearing impaired, ordered her to appear sober at the next date, or show cause why she should not be held in contempt, and called a deputy over. And the deputy walked my wife into the hallway and asked her how she had gotten to the courthouse this morning. She had driven. Her lawyer, to his credit, moved fast, took her keys, put her in a rideshare, and stood in the parking lot with his briefcase between his feet, making phone calls to save what was left of his morning. I watched it from 30 feet away next to my lawyer, who said quietly, "Do not smile. The judge can see the parking lot from her chambers." So I did not smile. I am smiling now. Everything after that was arithmetic. Whatever fight her side had planned about deviating from the maintenance formula, about her needs, about my earning potential, all of it died in that courtroom. 2 weeks later, at the rescheduled date, she came in sober, in the same cardigan buttoned to right, and she signed everything. The house came to me with a buyout of her equity. The formula ran exactly as written, a third of hers minus a quarter of mine, capped $650 a month to me for 6 years. Her lawyer asked for one deviation at the end, something face-saving, and the judge looked at the file for a second and said, "The guidelines exist for cases exactly like this one," and signed it. $650. It is not a fortune. I won't get rich off of it, but it will help. But on the first of every month, the woman who kissed a consultant in a hotel elevator, she bid her whole schedule around, sends her building engineer ex-husband a payment by order of the state of Illinois, and will until our daughter is almost through her 20s. The man that told me that day and his wife are still our people. My people. I have to keep fixing that sentence. He helped me move the new couch in last month. His wife checks on my daughter at school more than I do. My wife has not spoken to either of them since the phone call. My daughter sees her mother about once a month, on her own terms, sober terms, her rule, not mine, and they have never once said a word against her mother to her, and I never will. She is 19. Nobody has to explain her mother to her, and my ex-wife still flies. Seniority is seniority. But I heard through the one channel that still trickles that she got a number at her last physical that finally scared her, and that she has 90 days sober as of this summer. I want to be clear about how I feel about that because it is not complicated. I hope it holds. I spent 12 years married to the woman, and the last thing I ever wanted was the thing her doctor kept warning her about. She ended the marriage. But at the same time, I hope she is around long enough so her and her daughter can repair their relationship. The deposit hit again on the 1st, right on time. She has always been reliable that way. 22 years, and she never missed a trip. She just missed everything at home. Oh, my daughter is mine. I did do a DNA test. You know, before narrating stories, I didn't realize people in the medical field cheat a lot. According to the data, I'm not saying every nurse, every doctor is a cheater, as well as flight attendants, but I'm just going by the data. And I've said this before. Sometimes you might find out that your spouse is cheating from an unlikely source. As in this case, this guy just happened to be traveling to a spot where she was not supposed to be in, and she got caught. And I'm going to say this again. He got lucky. He was in a no-fault divorce state, and men do not get alimony. He gets a little bit each month for 6 years. It's not a lot, $600 something.